The decision was a difficult one. It was arrived at carefully and respectfully by a process that began in January of this year and has been transparent, open, and fair.
That's the Law Society of Upper Canada with its denial of accreditation for Trinity Western University legal graduates, if you will. So joining us to have this discussion, Christopher Hicks is founding partner at Hicks Adams Law Firm, and then we've got Janet F. Buckingham, Associate Professor at Trinity Western University. Let's start with Janet. Janet, you're in Ottawa. Describe to me how you reacted to this ruling from the Upper Canada Law Society, as well as I'll point out the Law Society in Nova Scotia with some conditions as well.
Well, obviously, we're very disappointed in this decision. We felt that it was lawyers that were making a decision that flies in the face of a clear Supreme Court of Canada precedent. I sat through the hearings at the Law Society of Upper Canada, and it really felt like the lawyers were sitting in judgment of our religious beliefs and then deciding that our graduates were unworthy to practice law in the province of Ontario. And then, of course, that was followed by a similar decision in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, what's your take on all of this? I mean, is the Law Society incorrect?
Well, it was a reasonably close vote. As Janet was there, she knows it was 28-21 not to accept Trinity Western graduates. All professions are self-governing. So the Law Society of Upper Canada governs all the lawyers in Ontario, and they want to be very careful about this issue. They want to be very careful about discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. So I'm not sure what the arguments were one way or another, but the Law Society, at least for now, was persuaded that they, as governing our profession, the lawyer's profession in Ontario, they ought not to go down this path. They ought to take this stance because it seems to be, arguably, discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation.
Is that the case, Janet? Do you discriminate based on sexual orientation?
We don't feel that we do discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. All students are welcome to apply and come to Trinity Western. The university is a Christian university. It was founded in 1962. And we do have what we call a community covenant that sets out our Christian principles that all students, faculty, and staff agree to live within. We are a religious learning community, and one of those principles is that everyone voluntarily agrees to abstain from sexual intimacy that violates the sacredness of marriage. And we further define marriage for our religious community as being between a man and a woman. And it is from that our policies are said to be discriminatory against gays and lesbians. I should make it clear, we do have gays and lesbians on our campus. They're a welcome part of our community because there are gays and lesbians who are also evangelical Christians, and they seek to address their sexual orientation through the lens of their Christian faith.
Yeah. So, Chris, that doesn't sound like sexual discrimination to me per se. I mean, they're even promoting that, you know, male-female students getting together outside of the confines of marriage shouldn't.
I'm glad to hear that they have gays and lesbians on campus. I'm not sure what function they're fulfilling on campus. The real problem is Trinity Western is a school and not a religion. That's going to make it difficult to get under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter, in my view. But the real problem, I think, Janet, is this for your school, and it's not going to kick in until 2016, and you are going to be a target. You are definitely going to get gay and lesbian students applying to be students there. And that's where the rubber is going to meet the road for you. You're going to have to make a decision on whether such people are going to be allowed to enter your law school and on what basis. That's the apprehension, I think, that the Law Societies of Nova Scotia and Ontario have, that you're going to discriminate in terms of admission of people. Not simply ask people to voluntarily agree not to engage in homosexual activities. That's another thing from saying, to get into our school, can you be gay or lesbian? Can you enroll as a law student there if you are, say, I am openly gay?
It's not something that we ask students when they are applying to the university.
I don't think you're allowed to ask, are you, Janet?
We're not allowed to ask, and we don't ask. So we're not going to exclude anybody based on their sexual orientation. Students coming to the university know that it is a Christian university, and we do make it clear that there is a community covenant that all students abide by. Now, this is a 5-page document. It is founded in a commitment to respect one another. It's founded in a commitment to pursue learning together and to uphold Christian virtues like love and care and hope, and to focus on wellness and a positive and respectful learning environment.
Okay, but Janet, I mean, over a decade ago, you went to the Supreme Court of Canada, right? Your school.
We went to the Supreme Court of Canada on exactly the same issue with respect to our education program, and the Supreme Court of Canada said, under Section 2A, which is the protection for religious freedom, as a religious learning community, we have the right to have a religious community covenant that applies across the campus.
Sure. Well, so you were students in your teaching degrees, because it was the British Columbia Teachers College who rejected your graduates. But under that, your students had to sign an agreement not to engage in homosexuality. And the Supreme Court of Canada said that the British Columbia Teachers Association was wrong to reject Trinity students on the basis of discrimination, because that wasn't discrimination. That's right, anybody can agree, okay, I will not do a homosexual act. But the real problem is, as I say, if people say, I am a homosexual and I want to go to Trinity Western Law School in 2016, that's going to be a problem for you. What are you going to do? That's discrimination if you say, no, you can't come because that is contrary to our beliefs.
Okay, Chris, we got to leave it there. And Janet, we're going to be right back. We got to take a 2-minute commercial break. We'll be right back. Obviously, a commercial for Trinity Western. Looks like a nice place to go, but a lot of controversy considering their stance in terms of legal students not being allowed to practice once they graduate from that university. Chris Hicks is here, as well as Janet Epp Buckingham. Janet, let's get back to you in Ottawa there, because Chris is suggesting that suppose somebody who is declared a homosexual arrived at the school, I assume he'd still be let in, but would he have to sign some kind of a celibacy document?
Well, all students at Trinity Western, as part of the admissions process, agree with the community covenant. All faculty and staff also agree with the community covenant. So if in the process of admission a student has applied and signed the community covenant, or actually nowadays it's clicked the community covenant, that student is welcome to come. They're all treated the same, whether they're applying for graduate or undergraduate programs, whether they're applying for law, education, or nursing. They're all treated the same. They apply, they click that they agree with the community covenant and agree to abide by it, and then they're welcomed as students on the campus.
Well, there you go, Chris. I mean, there's no discrimination I'm seeing from that policy.
Well, the problem is anybody can form a like-minded group. You can all say, okay, we are not homosexuals, we are not going to commit homosexual acts. That's fine. Everybody can gather around and say, this is
But that's not what they're saying. She's being inclusive of homosexuals.
Well, no, what if they don't click on the application form to that effect, Janet? And what if they say, I am openly gay, and you can't tell me I can or cannot have sexual relations while I'm going to school here as a law student?
We don't ever know. They apply online and they click that they agree with the community covenant, or they don't click that they agree with the community covenant for whatever reason. And if they don't click that they agree with the community covenant, their application does not make it into the admission stream.
I think that's a problem for you, though. I don't think you have a Section 2 stand on that, Janet. I really don't. That's not the same as accepting.
The Supreme Court of Canada has already said that that is within Section 2A. That's what the BCCT and Trinity Western case was about in 2001.
No, that was a different issue in my view, Janet. On that issue,
teachers are different than lawyers?
No, I didn't say that. You want to sign an agreement not to engage in homosexuality.
It's not about homosexuality.
That was the case that went to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Homosexuality is not mentioned in the community covenant.
Well, implicit, isn't it? That was the issue that went to the Supreme Court of Canada. They said that because someone agrees not to engage in a homosexual act, that's not discrimination. But the real issue is, what if someone who is gay or lesbian wants to come inside your tent? What if they don't click on that bar that says they agree to this covenant? That's the problem you have, because they're not agreeing because they're gay or lesbian.
We have no idea why people don't click on the community covenant. If they disagree with the community covenant because of anything in the community covenant, we have no idea why they would or would not have clicked in their agreement of the community covenant. If we only chose gay and lesbian people who didn't click on the community covenant, that would be discrimination. But we don't. We have no idea why.
Janet, you can't be willfully blind. I mean, people are not going to click on that button because they are gay or lesbian. That's why, and they still want to come to your school, and you're going to have to make a decision on that, and that's the discrimination issue.
Oh, okay, we can beat a dead horse on this one, but I want to get to the Law Society's reactions. And Janet, do you think the Law Society is injecting morality, their own morality, into the decision about your school?
Well, as I said, we really felt that they were sitting in judgment of our religious beliefs and wishing to impose a different view of what our community covenant should be, or what the sexual practices within our community should be. Our community covenant is based on what we believe to be biblical standards of morality in a whole host of areas, including sexual morality. And we really felt that the lawyers were, and they very much dealt with this from an emotive and very personal perspective of their own interpretation of sexual morality, and we didn't feel that that was appropriate.
Janet, you were at that meeting, you've said, at the Law Society of Upper Canada. It was a 28-21 vote. There must have been a heated discussion. You couldn't all have been one-sided. There must have been a group, a considerable faction, who said, is this issue something that we should act upon?
Well, those that voted in favor of approving the university for our graduates to be able to practice law in Ontario largely focused on the Supreme Court of Canada precedent in the British Columbia College of Teachers case, the decision that was made in 2001. And they felt that that decision was binding on the Law Society. All administrative tribunals are bound to follow decisions of the Supreme Court of Canada, and they looked at that case and said it is essentially the same case, we must follow it.
What about other law societies? Have they said yay or nay, or are they just quiet on this issue now? British Columbia, Alberta, so on?
We have been approved in 6 provinces: British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland.
But not Alberta, and conditionally in Nova Scotia, they get rid of that clause. Janet, thank you so much for explaining your position. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Janet Epp Buckingham is Associate Professor at Trinity Western University, and Christopher Hicks, thank you as well, Chris, at Hicks Adams Law Firm. We're going to take a